Informal groups have been created in the Russian occupation army in the Pokrovsk direction in the Donetsk region to search for deserters. The Ukrainian partisan movement Atesh reported this on its Telegram channel. According to Atesh, informal groups for searching for deserters were created in particular in the 9th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, which mostly consists of forcibly mobilized residents of the temporarily occupied territory of Donetsk Oblast. Deserters are searched for at their place of registration and pressure is put on relatives. If a deserter is found, he is placed in a basement and then transferred to an assault unit. According to Atesh, units of the 9th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian occupation forces are suffering heavy losses, and some servicemen are surrendering. This is due to poor training and lack of support. The brigade has no organized evacuation of the wounded. They are making their way to the rear on their own. Because of all this, the morale of the personnel is very low, which leads to desertion. It should be noted that the Pokrovsko direction is directly the hottest section of the front. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, yesterday, September the 9th, Russian occupiers attacked the positions of the Armed Forces of Ukraine 60 times in this direction. Ukrainian fighters repelled all attacks. The battles took place in the areas of the settlements of Vladimirovka, Novoye Shakovo, Zapovednoye, Miro Lyubovka, Shevchenko, Kotlino, Udachnoye, and others. Recall, Russian garrison courts have busy days, as the number of Russian soldiers fleeing the war is soaring. Back in 2021, such cases were rare, but since 2022, there have been tens of thousands across the country. The Barents Observer counted the number of verdicts issued by military courts in the northern region of Russia. In Russian criminal law, military refusal to serve is divided into several categories. Unauthorized abandonment of a unit is when a serviceman leaves his place of service without permission, but without the clear intention to completely evade service. Desertion is a more serious crime, a conscious and final departure with the intent not to return. Sometimes the investigation starts the case as desertion, but courts often reclassify it as unauthorized absence, especially if the serviceman returns voluntarily. Faking illness is another way of evasion, where a serviceman tries to avoid service by pretending to have health problems. However, cases under this article are not initiated very often. The difference between the articles is primarily in the wording and maximum terms. Desertion carries up to 15 years. Unauthorized absence up to 10, and faking illness also up to 10 years. Russian President Vladimir Putin believes that the return of the army from the war in Ukraine threatens to increase crime and destabilize the political system he created, three sources close to the Kremlin told Reuters. According to one of the agency's interlocutors, Putin sees the risk of a situation similar to the 1990s when veterans began to form gangs and organized crime groups after the end of the war in Afghanistan. This threat is already being partially realized. According to the Federal Penitentiary Service and Ukrainian intelligence, 120 to 180,000 prisoners from Russian colonies and prisons were sent to the front. Some of them committed serious crimes after returning, killing or maiming hundreds of Russians. According to a Reuters source, Putin's concerns are linked not only to psychological trauma and the possible criminal past of veterans, but also to economic realities. The salaries and bonuses of soldiers at the front are many times higher than the income available to them in civilian life. A sharp deterioration in the financial situation could cause discontent among this group of people and lead to increased social tension, the agency's source notes. A second source said Putin feared the consequences of a mass return of veterans for the political system he had created. The president had already experienced the chaos that veterans could wreak when Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the Wagner private military company, led a mutiny against the army's top brass and sent tanks to Moscow in June 2023. The source told Reuters. Another source told the agency that in order to neutralize these threats, Putin ordered the launch of the propaganda program Time of Heroes and the creation of its analogues in the regions, calling veterans the future elite of the country. Now the authorities are integrating former fighters into state structures. The military is receiving seats in regional parliaments, the presidential administration, and the Federation Council. As of early 2025, more than 1.5 million Russians had fought in the war with Ukraine, according to British political scientist and Russia expert Mark Galeotti. Analysts believe that veterans returning from the front may pose a more serious problem than Afghans. Gregory Pfeiffer, executive director of the Washington Institute of Contemporary World Affairs and the author of The Great Game about the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, noted that the current war is much bloodier. Thus, according to official data, about 15,000 people have died in Afghanistan, and confirmed losses in Ukraine have already exceeded 125,000. Western intelligence estimates total losses, including killed and wounded, at 1 million people. We're talking about a much more violent conflict, Pfeiffer said. Galeotti, who wrote a report on demobilization problems in Russia, believes that problems with returning veterans from Ukraine are unlikely to reach the level characteristic of the wild 1990s. But given that there will be many more of them than Afghans, a real time of troubles is possible. The expert does not rule out